Yo, 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 yo. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everyone had a good weekend, man. First off, shout out to everyone that was here in the building the other day. We had another good, successful live commentary the other day watching the undisputed matchup between Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez. All right. Very good time. Very good time. All right. So we'll get into a little bit of that shortly. Um, First off, make sure you smash that like button ASAP. Support the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification as well, so you'll be alerted anytime I drop new content. All right. And also follow me on my Twitter and Instagram account at BoxingWave10. All right. A little delay. Got here a little late. I was supposed to get here about a half an hour ago. Apologize for that. I know some of you were waiting. I see a lot of you here in the chat room already. The working man. What's up, man? Ace, Prabeen, Eddie Morales, G-Man. What's up, everyone? What's up? The Brotherhood was good, man. Was good. Haven't seen you in here a little bit. What's happening? Let's go through the comments. Linares is a highly skilled boxer, but he's washed up and lacks power. Haney needs to make a statement by getting him out of there. If he doesn't, he really hurts his name. All right. Ace says it's time for good fights and fed up with mismatches. I agree. Also, stop ripping off the fans with very weak undercards. The working man says what we really need is more activity like Canelo. Most top fighters fight once or maybe twice a year. I agree. Prabeen says, shout out to BoxingWave, big fan all the way from Australia. It's already 2:50 a.m. over here, just waiting to see your video. Big salute. Thank you, man. Thank you. Shout out to Australia. And Eddie Morales says, for some reason, every time I work, Wave streams, but when I don't work, he doesn't stream. Listen, man, I can get on here when I can get on here, man. G-Man says, big shout out to BoxingWave. He knows his boxing. Big shout out to Josh Taylor, Undisputed Baby. Yeah, and the Brotherhood says, congrats to Taylor, but he is overrated. All right, so we're going to talk about a lot of things today. All right, I hope the mic sounds good. I hope everyone is feeling good. And let's get into it, man. Let's before we talk about these fights coming up this weekend, we're going to go right into the fights that we just pass. Josh Taylor, undisputed against Jose Ramirez. So Josh Taylor is undisputed at 140 right now. And a lot of people are talking Terence Crawford because he was the last undisputed at 140. And Crawford moved up as soon as he won undisputed. Shout out to Rob. Thank you for the super chat, the donation. I appreciate it, brother. So look, Josh Taylor wins, and it was a good fight. It was a very competitive fight. All right, but a lot of people are upset with the referee. All right, Kenny Bayless disappointed. He made the fight worse than what it needed to be. Okay. And this is not the first time we've seen where ref was just too involved. If you guys saw my live commentary, and I was saying Kenny Bayless needs to let these guys fight. When guys are tied up, sometimes you got to give them time to break up. We want to see some work on the inside. We don't want to see you jump in every time these guys. Kenny Bayless did exactly what that ref did in a Joshua and Joseph Parker fight. Wasn't really a good fight. As far as entertainment, it could have been a lot better. But whenever these guys tied up or they were on the inside, the ref felt like he needed to step in right away every single time. And it really, really annoyed me. It could have been a much more entertaining fight. All right. Another thing, a lot of people feel that Josh Taylor was set up to be robbed that night. I read a lot of comments about that. okay, because of the refereeing, because of the scorecards. A lot of people were disappointed with the scorecards. The fight would have been a draw if it wasn't for the knockdowns. Based on the scoring, it was a unanimous decision, but pretty much all judges saw it the same way. It was 114, 112. So if you do the math, it's pretty much 6 rounds to 6 rounds plus the 2 points that Josh Taylor got from the 6th and 7th round knockdowns. All right. But yeah, it was, I'm not going to go as far as the robbery claims because of the, I scored it and I went back and watched it. I did go back and watch it. And I scored it 7-5 to Josh Taylor. It was pretty much, there were some swing rounds in there. There were some pretty close rounds, but I didn't think the fight was that hard to score for me. I think the night of the fight, I think I scored maybe it was a 4th or the 5th round, a draw. Okay. But I went back and I gave Ramirez. That's the only difference that I saw on the second viewing. I think it's 7 rounds to 5. I think Ramirez won the 11th and 12th rounds, the 9th round, and 2 of the earlier rounds before the knockdowns. All right. I think Taylor definitely won the 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds. I gave Taylor the first round, which was a toss-up. It was a filling out round. Some people gave that round a tie. All right. But, I think Ramirez, up into the knockdown, I think Ramirez was still a little bit of control. Like, I thought Josh Taylor was outscoring him as far as points. But Ramirez at that time seemed the aggressor. And it seemed like every punch that landed with his punches were a little bit more effective than Josh. Josh was doing a better job scoring, right? Landing scoring shots. But Ramirez seems like every time he landed early on, it seemed like they had more of an impact. All right. And Josh, I wasn't really happy with Josh and the holding. I think the holding was a little bit much, especially early on. Later, once he started to get a little bit more, momentum and he started to hurt Ramirez after the first knockdown, I like Josh, what he was doing later. But earlier on, Josh seemed a little bit unsure of himself, especially on the inside. He was doing a lot of punching, holding, leaning. He was doing a lot of that kind of Klitschko stuff that we've seen. All right. And I think I said the same thing that night. But again, Ramirez got a little bit. I'm sorry, not Ramirez. Kenny Bayless got a little too involved, and this is why I can't really go with the robbery claims, because if anything, Kenny Bayless was helping Josh Taylor by separating him very quickly. Because Ramirez is the guy that I would expect to work more on the inside, and he was robbed of that opportunity. But I felt like Kenny Bayless was giving Ramirez a lot of time to recover. Whenever those knockdowns came, Josh Taylor was trying to go back out, and Kenny Bayless he was separating the two, and he was keeping, he was making sure Josh was on his neutral court. He was doing it. It seemed a little bit extra to me. I think he gave Ramirez a little too much time to recover after those knockdowns. Because once Ramirez got up, Kenny Bayless gave him like a full another 10 seconds at least before he would let the fight continue. And the second knockdown, not the first one. The first one was kind of a flash knockdown. Ramirez seems to be all right. He was a little off. A little shaken up. But Ramirez did good for the remainder of that round. But in the 7th round, when he caught that uppercut, he was badly hurt. And if there was a little bit more time, Josh may have got the stoppage. All right. So, that's the way I see it. Good win for Josh. I wasn't expecting a knockout, but we could have gotten a knockout if Josh was a little bit more aggressive. The thing is, Josh, even after the 7th round where he hurt him, Josh played it very safe. And I think he gave up a few of those rounds later. The 9th, the 11th, the 12th rounds, I gave them Ramirez because Ramirez fought as if he needed a knockout. But after the knockdowns, he just wasn't as strong. You know, you saw it. A guy like him needs to be very aggressive, and he just didn't have it in him. He didn't have it in him, and Josh was able to play it safely and secure, you know, the win. All right, which is probably smart on that on his end, but it was risky because you just never know how the judges have it. You know, you never know. I thought he played it a little too safe because listen, if they were out to rob you, you know, it could have been that night. You can't put robberies past these judges anymore. You can't trust the judges. You know, you got to assume that you got to dominate every time. You have to. And some of these fighters have to assume that they you know, they're down, you know, because what if the judges gave Ramirez all of those early rounds? You know, I know when I was giving my score, there were people in the comment section that had Ramirez up pretty far in those earlier rounds. All right. So we saw it a different way. But there are other people that thought Josh was easily coasting throughout the first half of the fight. All right. Shout out to the Texan. Thank you for the donation. The Texan says Katie's broke Ramirez confidence, picked him to win, but glad Josh sealed a deal like that after seeing scorecards. Then nobody would have been undisputed. Yeah. Thank you for the donation, brother. You know, look. You know, the scorecards are funny. You know, I never really trusted the system in the way that they're written. You know, it would have been disappointed if there was a draw. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. If there were no knockdowns, all right, the fight was a toss-up. If we're not counting the knockdowns, all right, the fight would have been a toss-up or possibly been a win for Ramirez. Because, you know, if we're looking at it, yeah, maybe not the first knockdown, but the second knockdown really hurt Ramirez. So that took some rounds out of him. I think he lost the rounds following up after that. But, you know, at the same time, like, if you look at his earlier rounds, he didn't look bad. You know, I think Josh was outscoring him, but Ramirez to me was the aggressor, you know, and it looked like Josh didn't really want to exchange. I think he was playing it too safe. So people could see it different ways. You know, I might think he was outscoring him, but people might have liked Ramirez's aggression, you know, and his power. He looked like the more powerful fighter. All right. So outside of the knockdowns, I think the fight was very competitive and debatable outside of those knockdowns. All right. So the scorecards didn't really bother me at all. It bothered some, but it didn't really bother me. All right. So moving on, you know, I heard a couple more interviews. I don't know exactly what these fighters are going to do, and things can change, you know, asking a fighter what they're going to do, you know, right after a fight like that, you never really know. All right. So Josh Taylor, people are a lot more interested in what he's going to do. Is Ramirez going to stay at 140? I think even with the loss, Ramirez should still move up to 147. Okay. You know, he is, you know, he's an older guy, you know, he's not old, but, you know, he shouldn't be struggling so much to make weight, go to 147. There's plenty of options up there. It would be a good fight for anybody to fight Ramirez. And I think he'll be stronger at 147. You know, he'd probably be stronger at 147. Now, the thing is, the competition at 147 is a different level. We all know that. 147 is a different beast. And as far as pound for pound, 147 for many years now, have been one of the top divisions. It has the biggest names in boxing, some of the biggest names, some of the biggest, you know, with Manny and Floyd and Bud and, you know, all of these fighters that's been there over the years. 147 has been a big division for many, many years now. You know, so Ramirez should still go up, in my opinion. I hope he goes up because, you know, I mean, he belongs there. He's been at 140 for a long time. He did what he could. He was unified at 140. All right. He was undefeated at 140 until he lost to Josh. There's plenty of fights that could be made. You know, Regis Prograis is up at 147 now. They can make that fight. That's one fight that didn't happen. Josh Taylor beat both. But that's a fight that can happen. I'm interested in seeing that fight. You know, I think Ramirez should take maybe not a tune-up, but a respectable fight, a first fight at 147, and and maybe get into a big matchup with somebody up at 147. So I would like it. He wouldn't fight Virgil Ortiz because those guys are close and they're part of the same camp. But maybe a Jerron Ennis fight against Boots would be good. Even a fight against maybe a first comeback fight against Olympian Yates, who just lost to Boots. That would be a good first fight up there at that weight. All right. So there's plenty. Plus, there's a lot of new guys. You got Conor Ben up there. There's a lot of options at 147. So even if you don't fight the very best, if you don't fight the Sean Porters, or obviously you're not gonna fight Errol Spence, but you don't have to fight the very elite. But there's plenty of guys that's just below that very elite class of fighters that are available. So there's plenty of fights for Ramirez, even though you took a loss. You're not just some bum, That's how a lot of boxing fans are today. You lose a fight, now everybody just writes you off like you're nobody. There are plenty of options up there at 147. Plenty. So he should move. And he'd probably be strong. He's a power puncher. He's an aggressive fighter, and I think there are more opportunities up there for Jose Ramirez. All right. As far as Josh Taylor, he's probably most likely going to defend his titles against Jack Catterall, who's been a mandatory for one of the titles. I'm not sure if it's a WBO, but one of the titles, Catterall already took stepped aside money. He already stepped aside for this unification, undisputed fight can happen, right? So Josh is looking to at least have his fight with Jack Catterall. All right, now Jack Catterall, undefeated, good fighter, southpaw, could box well. All right, doesn't bring anything that Josh hasn't seen. All right, I believe that Josh already beaten a couple guys that's better than Jack Catterall. All right, but Jack Catterall is not bad at all. Now, if Josh Taylor takes the fight lightly, and he totally underestimates Jack Catterall, then the fight could be a lot more competitive than it would normally be, in my opinion. Josh Taylor should win this fight. Out of all of the things that we've seen him do, beat Baranchek, beat Regis Prograis undefeated, beat Ramirez undefeated, or Baranchek was undefeated as well. Beat Victor Postal, beat all of the fighters that he's beaten up to this point. He should be able to beat Jack Catterall. Jack Catterall is not his biggest test, but he's not on a walk in the park neither. All right, so he's going to defend his title, and I'm assuming that after that defense, he should be going straight into welterweight and possibly fighting Terence Crawford. In an interview, he said that he is looking to fight Terence Crawford, both undisputed at 140 in recent years. Terence Crawford was, undisputed, and then he moved up to 148 and fought Jeff Horn. All right, so Jack Catterall, decent fighter. I think Josh should not take the fight lightly, but he should not underestimate. He should be able to beat Jack Catterall. So that's how I feel. Jack is a British fighter, and they're probably going to be fighting out in the UK at some point. All right. As far as Teofimo Lopez, I don't think Josh is really interested in the fight. All right. Josh doesn't seem to really be into it. And it's not a fight that I'm expecting to happen unless there's some kind of huge amount of money that comes out of nowhere, maybe from Triller, if there's some, or maybe the Saudis. I can't see that fight happening any other way. Teo wants to fight a lot more, according to his claims. He seems to be a lot more interested because there's a lot more in it for him. Whether you consider him undisputed at 135 or not, he is a 4-title champion. He holds the 4 highest titles in the division. And it would be a lot more for him if he is to have those titles at 135, then go straight up and beat the undisputed champion at 140. That would be huge for him. For Josh, wouldn't be so huge. It'll just be a defense of his current undisputed, being that he's already one weight class above Teofimo Lopez. It won't be for Tio's titles. It'll only be for Josh's titles. Okay. So I don't see the fight happening. Josh, if he's going to take a risk at all, the better risk to take, in my opinion, would be fighting Terence Crawford, who's still undefeated, who many believe is one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world. And that would be a better, if you're going to take a risk at all, that would be the risk to take right there. You know, if you were the first to beat Terence Crawford, that would be huge. All right. So that is what we are planning for Josh Taylor. Ramirez, like I said, Ramirez just bought the 147. No more point of straining yourself and try to make 140 anymore. Go up to 147. Plenty of fights there. Josh Taylor have his last defense against Jack Catterall, or first defense against Jack Catterall. You did what you had to do. You beat the best in the division. Move up. Move up. Go to 147. There's plenty of options there. There's so much to do up there, and that's the plan for Josh, right? After this defense. All right, so I think I covered everything when it comes to Josh Taylor. One thing I do want to bring up, and I want to look through some of the comments. I see you guys are leaving comments here, and I'm going to get through some of these comments in a minute. Just give me a second before we move on to the next topic. All right, but one thing, we've been talking a little bit about Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford. What is Terence Crawford going to do? He didn't get the Pacquiao fight. We all know that him and Spence really wanted to fight. We thought that top rank was going to fight. For whatever reason, the fight fell apart. I did a poll yesterday. I read a lot of your comments, but I did a poll where I asked you guys, and I simply asked because I wanted to know how people felt. Who's a more dangerous fighter for Manny Pacquiao? All right. Is it Terence Bud Crawford or is it Errol Spence? And according to the poll, it seemed like maybe 60% of the voters picked Terence Crawford as the more dangerous fight for Manny Pacquiao. All right. I saw some of the comments, and a lot of people are upset because they feel like Spence has done much more as a welterweight. He's proven much more as a welterweight than Terence Crawford. So a lot of people don't see the logic or why anyone would pick Bud because Bud doesn't have a resume. This is the thing. All right, and I'm going to throw Josh Taylor in the mix too, because I read a couple comments already that Josh Taylor was the more impressive undisputed champion at 140. Like his resume at 140, what he did at 140 was more impressive than what Terence Crawford did at 140. And I keep having to remind people that, Terence Crawford fought as a lightweight for 7 years and then moved up. He moved up to 140. 140 was a pit stop for him, right? He's probably going to finish his career as a welterweight. 140 was a pit stop, and while he was there, he won undisputed. Regis Prograis, Josh Taylor they was just getting their feet wet around this time. All right? It is what it is. People keep forgetting, and the same comes with Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is a career welterweight. He started in 2013. He's fought there for 8 years. So it would only make sense for Spence to have a more impressive welterweight resume. Bud just got there a few years ago. He just got there. Same thing with junior welterweight. He fought the current best at that time. Victor Postol at that time was undefeated, was trying to get his shot with Danny Garcia a few times. Danny eventually moved up. You know? So people keep forgetting that part. Bud was doing what he had to do in those weight division, but he was a career lightweight that moved up to 140, beat the best at 140 at that time, right? Because we could say that about anybody. Even Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia, he beat Matisse, who was dangerous at that time, knocked out Lamont Peterson. All right? He beat Amir Khan at that time at 140. But at that time, at 140, Amir Khan was available. He was fresher. That's not Bud's fault. You know, you beat who you can at the time that you're there in that division. That's it. There's nothing more you can really do. If these guys like Taylor and Prograis are not at that level, the highest level yet, you beat the guys that are at the highest level. Julius Ndongo was for Undisputed. Obviously, Ndongo is not really that good. All right? He was a champion at the time. Delorme and was it Bud? They fought for a vacant title. But the title was vacant. He just moved up to 140. What is he supposed to do? Victor Postol was his best test at 140. It was. And at 135, Gamboa was his best test. Gamboa was still really good at the time. So it would be ridiculous to compare Bud's resume to Errol Spence's resume as a welter, because Errol Spence has been fighting there for as long as Bud fought as a lightweight. This resume shouldn't be better. On top of that, Bud is with Top Rank. Spence is with PBC that has all of the guys, top guys over there. Danny, Sean Porter, Manny Pacquiao for a little bit. So this is what I'm saying here. Now, as far as 140 Undisputed, I agree. I'm more impressed with Taylor's resume as a junior welterweight, but Crawford beat Postol. Crawford did it better, but Taylor still beat Victor Postol. All right? He beat undefeated Jose Ramirez, Ivan Barancek. He beat undefeated Regis Prograis. More impressive to me. All right? He won the World Boxing Super Series. More impressive to me, but it's all about timing. Josh Taylor wasn't available for Crawford. If Crawford beat Josh Taylor when he was at 140, I mean, at that time, Josh Taylor was still green. He was too green. So was Regis Prograis. You guys get what I'm saying? So it's all about timing. All right? So we got to be logical here when we're talking about whose resume is better. We got to look at timing. We got to look at divisions, what divisions fighters are fighting at. You know what I'm saying? We have to look at everything like that. It's like when Floyd fought Oscar. Oscar was at 147 for years. You know, comparing Oscar's resume to Floyd's as a welterweight really wasn't that fair to do, because Floyd moved up to fight Oscar. Everything that Floyd accomplished, same thing with Manny Pacquiao. How many divisions Manny Pacquiao moved up? You got to look at, if guys are moving up in divisions because they're naturally smaller, right? You gotta look at what they did in the smaller divisions. All right. So I did the poll just because people were talking about it a little bit, and I just wanted to see what you guys thought on it. You know, I did the poll: who's more dangerous for Pacquiao, Bud and Spence, and the majority of people put Bud. You know, and they're not. I'm sure the people that put Bud, they're not basing it on who did more at welterweight. They're basing it on what they see as far as skill set, styles, and they're basing on the overall body of work. All right. If Spence if we would never know, but if Spence and Bud fought all of the same people, all right, they only have one common opponent in Kell Brook. If Bud had the opportunity to fight all the people that Spence fought, how would that look? We will never know unless they actually fought. Hopefully, we could get some of those fights before Bud gets too old. We probably won't. All right. The only thing I would say about Bud is that I wish Bud did not re-sign with Top Rank. I wish he didn't. But I don't know why he re-signed with Top Rank. Maybe he re-signed with Top Rank because the money that was offered was better for Bud. Or maybe he just made a bad decision on being loyal to his original promoter. I have no idea. All right. But listen, we're not going to stay on this too long. But I did make a little like list here. See if you guys because Bud is without an opponent for now, unless something gets announced. And look, I'm gonna always keep it fair. I love Bud, but I'm always gonna criticize him too. If you want to fight the best, if you know the best fighters are with a certain promoter, I feel like, and I'm gonna make a video of this because I want to talk to you guys more about this. And since you guys are here, 7 of you guys here, so there's not a lot of people here, but I'll make a video. But since we are here, I'm really interested in hearing your guys' opinion about this. All right. If you are a fighter and you're planning to campaign in a specific division, and you are with a certain promoter, whereas you've been with this promoter, you're happy with this promoter, and it's time to resign, and you recently moved up, and the best fights are with the competition. Should you stay with your promoter, even if they're paying you more per fight? Or should you go to where the competition is? Now, you got to look at the flip side. If you stay with your promoter, guaranteed money is probably more than what you're getting paid on the other side. We don't know if Bud ever negotiated with PBC. We don't know. We don't know why he re-signed with him. People feel like he re-signed with them because he was avoiding the PBC guys. We don't know that. Because if that's the case, you can say that about every other fighter. I mean, Jamal Charlo is with the PBC, and the PBC don't have many middleweights. They have a lot of junior middleweights. All right. They got a couple guys at super middleweight, but at middleweight, they don't really have much there. All of the other guys are with DAZN, right? So Crawford, who signed with Top Rank, and Bob probably said, listen, we're going to give you $4 million per fight, no matter who you fight. You're going to be on ESPN, and I'm going to try to work out a Pacquiao fight, and I'm going to work out these other fights over here. He was never able to do it. So should fighters go with the promoter that has a better stable of fighters, or should they go where the money goes? It's easy for all of us that's sitting here on our couch that's not fighting to say, oh, go after where the best fighters are, because the object of all this is to get paid. Right? This is prize fighting at the end of the day. You're going to go where the money. So you can make the argument both ways. You can make the argument both ways. All right. But I constructed a little list, and we'll talk more about that, Eric, because I definitely want to talk more about that with you guys. But since Bud is not fighting Pacquiao, and he's not fighting Taylor right away, because Taylor is going to stay and fight Jack Catterall, I've constructed a little list in order of people I think he should fight soon. or that are not scheduled right now. I put Sean Porter at number one. All right, because Sean Porter is fresh. He is tough. He's not coming off any kind of injuries, losses, and he's fought the most welterweights. He's fought the most right now. He's fought them all. He's fought Keith Thurman. He's fought Kell Brook when he was in his prime. He fought Errol Spence at his prime before the accident. You know what I'm saying? Sean Porter has been in there with a lot of guys. He's fought Adrian Broner. I put him at number one. Number two, Virgil Ortiz. Virgil Ortiz wants to fight. And he's a little bit further developed than in its boots as far as resume. All right? I don't know if he's better than Boots, but that would be a great fight. That would be a good fight. And he's high ranking. He's higher ranked on the WBO. He's right under Sean Porter. Number three, I have Josh Taylor. Undisputed against Undisputed. Obviously, Josh Taylor is going to fight Jack Catterall next. Not scheduled yet, but that's probably where he's going to go. If he doesn't go, if he decides to move up to 147, Josh Taylor. Got to do Josh Taylor. Number four is Yordenis Ugas, who is currently holding the WBA strap. Now, I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know what's going to happen with the WBA. I don't believe it's been confirmed yet whether or not the WBA is going to sanction a fight with Pacquiao and Spence. I want to know officially. I don't know if it's official yet, but we'll see. But Ugas is a good fight. All right. He's been on a good run, had a great fight with Sean Porter, beat Omar Figueroa, pretty much shut him out while he was undefeated. Ugas is a good fight. I put Ennis up there. I put Boots at number 5. Boots is probably the most dangerous guy on a low. All right. He could be very dangerous for anybody at welterweight right now. Anybody at welterweight. All right. Not as proven as a lot of these other guys, though. He's contender level now. He's no longer a prospect. Like him and Virgil are no longer prospects. All right. But I have Ennis on the list. Number 6, Regis Prograis. Regis wanted that fight at 140. But Bud moved up. So Regis cleaned up, picked up a title at 140. All right. But he is now fighting at 147. That's a fight that we can still get. I said earlier that I would love to see Jose Ramirez against Regis Prograis, at 147. I would love to see that fight. 2 guys that lost to Josh Taylor didn't meet each other in the ring. They both were top rank at the time, but they didn't meet each other in the ring at 140. I would love to see Regis Prograis fight either Bud Crawford or Jose Ramirez. All right. Cool fight. Another good fight. Number 7, I have Keith Thurman. I know he's far down. on the list. All right. I know he was unified at one point. But Keith Thurman has not been active. Keith Thurman has waited another 2 years and don't have a fight scheduled since his loss to Pacquiao. And he went 2 years before fighting Pacquiao or Josecito Lopez. He's been plagued with injuries. Very accomplished. But right now, I don't think he's one of the biggest threats at 147. And if he still is, he has to show us that. Right under him, I have Danny Garcia. At 147, he's lost to all of the top fighters he's faced. All right. It would be a good win for Bud, but it wouldn't be that good of a win for Bud because, again, Danny has lost to every top welterweight he's faced. So losing to Bud Crawford wouldn't be that surprising, and it wouldn't be that respected. For the people that think Bud needs to fight someone big at 147, Danny doesn't look that valuable right now. All right. And the last 2, I put Jamal James and David Avenesian. Jamal James, solid welterweight, hasn't won a big fight yet, but has some good wins. He's still fresh, solid opponent, and high-ranking opponent. And the same with David Avenesian, who just beat Josh Kelly, exposed them, stopped them. All right. Josh Kelly was one of the better prospects at the division at one point. But David Avanesian. Well, Josh Kelly kind of got exposed the last couple of fights, but David Avanesian really just destroyed him. All right. All right. So let's move on from all the welterweight, yada, yada talk. And let's talk about more of these fights that's coming up this weekend. There's a lot of comments here. Let's go through some of them here. It's a lot of comments. Can't get through all. Curious George says Crawford looks more dangerous. The Brotherhood said Taylor versus Porter. That would be a very good fight. All right. Andrew Smith says, do you think if Taylor fights Lopez, the winner is pound for pound number 1? No. No. You know what? I don't think I can put them both over Canelo. Either one. And I know being undisputed, I can't say number 1. I still think Canelo's body of work is still more, and I know Canelo's never been undisputed. He might be this year. But it's definitely something we may have to discuss, and I may need to have more time to think about that. All right? But I would probably put them at number 2, the winner. I'll probably put them number 2. That would be crazy, especially for Tio. I think it'll be bigger for Tio. Jay Foreman says, I disagree right there. The more dangerous fighter is Spence. The guy is bigger, more proven at welter at the weight and hits harder. And that's cool. That's cool. I don't know who's more dangerous. I would need to see Pacquiao face both to know who's more dangerous. Going into the fight, though, I think stylistically, Crawford gives Pacquiao a lot more trouble. And I think there's a reason why Pacquiao did not want to fight Crawford unless it was for a ridiculous amount of money. All right, I think Spence, yes, he's bigger. He's more powerful. He is more proven at welterweight for sure. So I'm not going to argue that. But I think the styles favor Crawford more on a boxing level. I like Crawford's ability to counter Pac. Remember, Crawford is also bigger than Pacquiao too. All right. Let's not forget that. I know he's coming up from different weight classes, but he is naturally bigger than Pacquiao. You know, I think if Crawford were to fight Pac-Man, we'll see a little bit more than what Floyd was doing. Like, I think Crawford would look more impressive against Pacquiao than what Floyd did. You know, because Crawford is more likely to take risks and try to stop him, where Floyd played defense heavy in that fight. You know, so we'll see a little bit mix of what Floyd was doing, but a little bit more aggressive from Crawford. But at the same time, Crawford might get knocked on his ass too at some point in that fight because of the way of how aggressive he could be at certain points of that fight. I do believe that Crawford will more likely get knocked down and dropped by Pacquiao more so than Spence. You know, Spence is, you know, outside of the old Larte fight, I haven't really seen Spence really hurt like that, where I've seen Crawford rocked several times. All right. I think Spence is definitely more durable, you know, so even though I think, all right, so let me put it like this. I think Pacquiao is more likely to win rounds against Spence over Crawford. I think Crawford would have a better time trying to outbox Pacquiao. But I also think Crawford is more likely to get dropped and hurt by Pacquiao than Spence. You know, trying to get there because Crawford, again, he likes to try to stop everybody he faces. Both do. But Crawford, I don't think he can take the shot as good as Spence in doing that, you know? So if anybody is going to get knocked out by Pacquiao, I don't think Pacquiao stops him either. But if anyone is to get rocked or possibly knocked down, I think Crawford would probably get knocked down. You know, even if I still think, and I think Crawford could beat Pacquiao at this point. You know, that's how I feel. All right. All right. So let's move on, man. Let's move on. Let's talk about these fights this weekend. All right, we had 2 fights, 2 different cards, and I will give you a breakdown on both. And I should be able to cover the fight. I think I'm going to go up to my dad's house this weekend, so I'll probably be covering the fight from his house. So, you know, be on the lookout. I'll let you guys know, but I'm pretty sure I'll be covering a fight this weekend, both fights. Hopefully the fights won't overlap each other. I'll make sure I'll give you guys the information as far as the date. Well, we know it's going to be the Saturday, but the time of the fights. What I do know is Devin Haney versus Jorge Linares fight will be on the Zone this Saturday. And the Showtime card, Ubali against Nonito Duner at 118, that will be on Showtime. All right, so hopefully the fights don't overlap. If they do overlap, all right, the Haney fight will be the priority if they're both on at the same time. Not because if it's a better fight, but more people are looking for that fight. That's the more popular fight. All right. But I actually think the Oubaali Donaire fight is probably going to be the better match, in my opinion. All right. So hopefully they don't overlap each other. Hopefully we can get, like, you know, one of the undercards is still on for one of the fights, so I can tune into one and then tune into the other. All right, we'll see. But yo, let's talk about Devin Haney against Jorge Linares first. Let's talk about that. Now, I like the fight. And this is exactly how I wanted to see all these fights play out in 135. All these fights that we're getting right now is exactly what I wanted. If you've been here, you've heard me. It's like a tournament at 135 right now. What I would like, obviously, I would like some of the fights, like, you know, I wanted Teofimo against Devin Haney. And, you know, there are certain fights that I would have liked. You know, Ryan Garcia against Devin Haney. I would have loved to see that. All right. But right now, the division, they're all scheduled to fight good people. You got Teofimo Lopez, who's fighting George Kambosos, who is his mandatory. Kambosos is undefeated, you know, coming off the Lee Selby win. And it's a solid fight. You know, I think Teofimo Lopez is going to beat him, but it's a good fight. It's not a bad fight. You got Lomachenko against Nakatani, which is a sleeper. I mean, that is a very good matchup. That is going to be a good fight. Nakatani is a very durable fighter. He beat Felix Verdejo. He gave Teofimo Lopez one of the hardest fights, if not the hardest fights up to this point. You know, outside of Lomachenko, obviously. And you had Ryan Garcia against Javier Fortuna. But Ryan Garcia is falling back from boxing at the moment. Like, mentally, he's not there to fight right now. Hopefully he can get it together, get back in the ring. But he's going through mental issues right now, and he wants to fall back from the sport of boxing for now. I need some water. But anyway, let's talk about Devin Haney and this fight against Jorge Linares, which I really like, and I think is by far the best fight for Devin Haney in his career up to this point. By far. It's not even close. Gamboa wasn't it. You know, it wasn't it for me. Gamboa is far past it. Far past it. And for a guy to be as athletic as he is, he's a great boxer. At one of these points, he was one of those guys that was, as a prospect, he probably was the best prospect in the game when he was a prospect. And, you know, when he was fighting at a championship level, he was one of my favorite fighters to watch. Very explosive. But once he lost that athleticism, it wasn't that good, you know. His last hurrah was against Terence Crawford, was years ago. All right. By the time Tank got to him, he was already far past it. And by the time Devin Haney got to him, he was even more past it. All right. Very easy shutout for Devin Haney. All right. Wasn't much there. Gamboa didn't really challenge him. Now, Jorge Linares is not in his prime. Okay. He's not in his prime. But he is a very good boxer. He has good boxing ability. All right. He has enough power to hurt anyone at the division. Is he a puncher like Teofimo Lopez? Not at all. But respectable power. He's able to drop guys, stop certain guys. I think his last fight was against Carlos Morales, the guy that rocked. What's his kid name? The kid that I was just talking about. Ryan Garcia. King Rye. Morales was able to rock Ryan Garcia and possibly win. A lot of people felt that fight was a gift for Ryan Garcia. All right. But Linares was in there with him recently, and Linares destroyed him. All right. Linares was a champion for about good 7 fights. The thing about Linares is every time he lost, he was stopped. All right. Lomachenko was able to stop him, but Linares gave Lomachenko a good fight. Rocked Lomachenko a couple of times. Not even talking about the knockdown, but Lomachenko caught a couple big right hands in that fight. He also beat Luke Campbell. Was able to drop Luke Campbell early. Very close fight still, but Linares beat Luke Campbell. Linares got some solid wins, and I think he's the best test for Haney. You know, Linares even came out and said that he sparred with Haney before, all right, and had the better of him in sparring, which I believe because he probably fought Haney at a time where he was younger, and Linares was probably still champion at the time. Not sure if he was or not, but if Linares is to say that he sparred with Haney and, you know, had the better of him, I would believe that, you know, because Haney is still developing, you know. But Star Fox says, when is Adidas going to sponsor your channel for real, for real? I don't know, but I would love them to. I would love to. I would love to get some Adidas money. That would be dope, man. But Haney, the reason why I like it, because Haney's a boxer. He's not a puncher. He is a boxer. And Linares is a boxer. All right. Now he's a little past his prime. But, you know, Linares doesn't have the greatest chin. But Haney doesn't have the greatest power. So if Haney cannot stop Linares, I see this being a very competitive fight. Very competitive fight. Not only that, but Haney is not that proven. So what if Linares is able to catch him with something that can hurt Haney? What if Haney doesn't have a chin? How do we know he has a chin? Who has Haney fought with power? Well, he beat Abduliev. He beat Santiago. He beat Gamboa. Who has he fought that was dangerous up to this point? He hasn't fought anyone dangerous yet. All right. So for the people that think Haney is green and he hasn't proven anything, well, this will be the opportunity for him to get exposed. But if he is to beat Linares and is to win very convincingly or is to stop Linares, I think he deserves credit. Because he'll be fighting and beating a reigning, you know, a guy that had like several title defenses at 135. You know? And I know Linares got stopped by Lomachenko, and I know he even got stopped in the next fight after that. But that fight was at 140 against a puncher. Maybe it was a mistake for Linares to go up there and fight this guy. Obviously, it was. But Haney, I don't know, man. I'm going to definitely do a breakdown on the fight. But I like the fight. I love the fight. Actually, I love the fight. And I like all of these fights at 135 that are scheduled. You know, Haney was supposed to fight Luke Campbell at some point. I think Haney was going to do well against Luke Campbell. I don't think he was going to stop Luke, but if that fight actually happened, I would have predicted Haney to win on points. Javier Fortuna. All right, Javier Fortuna is a little bit of a wild card because Javier Fortuna is very powerful, very explosive, but he gets a little too wild in there sometimes. He's not really that textbook, he's not really like defensive. He walks in all the time. So I think with Ryan would have definitely stopped him. Because Ryan has that check left hook that is one punch, knockout, you're going to sleep. And Fortuna would have got caught by that, in my opinion. Maybe not. Maybe Ryan would have lost. Who knows? But going into the fight, I like Ryan a lot. With Haney, though, I like Haney's boxing. But let's say Haney doesn't really have a chin, because we haven't really seen Haney get rocked yet. We haven't seen him fight a puncher. So Fortuna would have been a good fight in that sense. Because I like Haney's boxing ability. I do. He is a guy that can secure rounds. He is a guy that can neutralize you. I like his angles. I like his punch variation. I like his counters. I like his hand speed. All right? He can move pretty well as well. Lacks power. All right? Sometimes, he gets caught. But overall, he's pretty well-rounded. He got good, solid boxing ability. There is a lot of potential there. But we haven't seen much of it yet. And I think this fight, it'll be the one to do it. But if he's overrated, we'll see it this Saturday. We'll see it this Saturday. But so far, the thing with Haney, so far, without the Linares, everybody has a better fight. Everybody else has a better win under their belt at some point. Everybody else, these other guys, Ryan has Luke Campbell. T.O. has a few good fights now at this point. He has a Nakatani win. Okay. He has the who's the guy that T.O. beat before Lomachenko? I can't think of his name right now. You guys let me know in the comments. I can't I don't know why I keep thinking I was about to say Joshua Clottey. I can't think of his name right now. Jesus Christ. Anyway, Richard Comey. My bad. I was going to say Joshua Clottey. But yeah, Timo got a way better resume at this point. Ryan got the better win too, in my opinion. I also think you have Lomachenko, who has a way better resume. No comparison. I do think Haney right now has the weakest resume, but I think the Linares win will make it look a little better. It will be like, okay, like at least he has that there, something there. He needs something. there. But there are better wins to have right now, because we do know that Linares is a little bit past it. All right, but I think it's a good fight, man. I think it's a good fight, and I am leaning towards Haney. I think Haney's going to do what he has to do, and I am predicting it could be by stoppage. If it is stoppage, I see an uppercut being a shot. Me watching Linares, good boxer, good combinations, very fast hands. But when he steps in, sometime he kind of lingers in. I think I can see Haney hurting him with an uppercut as Linares is stepping in or on his way out. I see that being a shot that hurts him. All right. I don't know if he's going to put Linares away, but if he is going to put Linares away, I think that's going to be the shot. All right. If it goes to scorecards, though, that will be the interesting part. All right. So, but I got Haney winning. And I'm definitely going to do a breakdown, Can't wait to do a breakdown this week, either by tomorrow or by what's say Monday. So I think by Wednesday we should have a breakdown. All right, up. I want to go back. I want to study and watch some film on the two fighters, but I see Haney. I got Haney winning this fight, and it's a very, very respectable win. All right, so moving on, we got Ubali against Nonito Duner. For what title? Let's see. Let me bring it up real quick. All right, so this is one of the titles at 118. We do know we know that Inoue has two titles at 118. Ubali has the WBC strap. All right. And Donaire is going to be fighting him. He's the number one guy at 118, even though he's coming off the loss against Naoya Inoue. He is the number one guy. He is the mandatory. This is a very good fight, and this is a very hard fight to call. You know, Ubali, I'm not as familiar. I've seen him fight twice. I've seen him beat him, and I also seen him beat Takuma Inoue, the brother of Naoya Inoue. That was on the same night that Donaire lost to the other brother Inoue. All right, which was one of the best fights that year. In fact, that was my personal favorite fight of 2019. So both of those fights were on the same night in 2019, and both fighters have not fought since the pandemic and since that night. All right, so they're both pretty inactive. The only thing is Donaire is older. How old is Donaire? How old is Nonito Duner now? He's got to be up there in age. I think the reason why Donaire is still so dangerous right now is the fact that he's moved back down to 118. You know, look that up. Nonito, he has to be at least 38 right now. I don't know why BoxRec is not showing his age. Yeah, I would think that Donaire is at least. I think he's at least 38 at this point. He's 38 years old. Okay, he'll be 39 in November. So I think Donaire, and the thing with Donaire, still very good, very explosive. I think his power is big down at 118. Him going back down is a big deal. It was a good idea. And it's extended his career. He's lost a lot. We know he's lost to Guillermo Rigondeaux back in the day at 122. We moved up to 126, lost to Nicholas Walters. All right, lost to Carl Frampton at some point. Him being at 118, though, makes him very dangerous for anyone. You know, we saw what he did to Inoue when they fought. Inoue, who won the fight, was able to hurt him, stop him, hurt him a couple times, and knock him down and everything. He, in a way, was very, very hurt against Donaire. All right. Because Donaire is a big guy at 118, and he's still very powerful, and he's still very fast. Even though he's older, he's still very fast. So he's dangerous for anybody, Donaire, at 118. At that weight, he's dangerous for anybody. You know, Ubali, who's younger, obviously, Southpaw fighter, very good boxer. All right, was able to outbox the brother in a way, Takuma, that night, and he was able to outbox and physically outwork Rashid Warren in their fight. You know, I have to go back and look at that fight. But Ubali's a good boxer, man, and I think this is a very tough fight to call. I'm definitely going to do a breakdown of that fight as well. I know a lot of people probably doesn't even know that this fight is this weekend, but this is a really good matchup, and I think this is going to be the fight of the weekend. You know, I got to look at all of the undercard fights, but I think this is going to be a better match than Haney and Linares. All right, this is going to be very competitive. And honestly, I think if Donaire doesn't win this fight, I think he might be out the game. I think this is his last hurrah. You know, he needs this win. All right, so this fight, I think the winner of this fight will probably be facing the winner of the Casemiro Rigondeaux fight that we're getting later this summer. All right, Guillermo Rigondeaux is going to be fighting Casemiro for his title. All right, so it'll be funny if both Rigondeaux and Donaire win their fights, because that means we would be seeing a rematch between Donaire and Rigondeaux. All right, now, but they're both very old. You know, I don't even know how old Rigo is at this point, but he's still in the game. You know, he lost to Lomachenko, but he is still around. He's picked up a few wins. He's definitely past his prime, but he's still hanging around. You know, and a fight against Casemiro is a good fight. Just like this fight here is a good fight. You know, older guys against the younger guys, but these are really good older fighters. Rigondeaux and Nonito Duner were considered pound-for-pound fighters at one point. All right, Donaire at one point before the Rigondeaux fight, he was a pound-for-pound fighter. All right, 3-division champion, I believe, 3 or 4, I'm not sure, but Donaire is solid, and this is going to be a good fight because Ubali, who I expect to be the boxer here and the guy fighting on his back foot. He could fight aggressively, but I expect him to be on his back foot, timing Donaire. Donaire is probably going to be the guy walking him down. Okay, being the aggressive here. He's the bigger guy. And I expect him to pressure Ubali. But I think Ubali is going to stand his ground. Right? And it should be a good fight, man. It should be a good fight, man. And we'll see. So anyway, yeah, I think that, you know, expect a breakdown of that fight. Love these fights, man. And we should be getting some more good fights, you know. I see everyone here talking about Fury. What are you guys talking about here? Fury and running box like AJ. What happened to Nicholas Waters? Jay Foreman asked, what happened to Nicholas Waters? Yeah, he retired. He retired, man. After he lost to Vasil Lomachenko, he just retired. He got fat and he never boxed again. You know, and that's the thing, you know, Nicholas Waters was a beast. But some of these fighters, when they lose completely mentally. They don't want to fight again, man. And he was kind of toyed around with Lomachenko. Lomachenko at that time was beating guys and toying with them. You know, 135, he really got challenged there because he is a smaller guy at 135. This is a guy that debuted at 126. You know, picked up titles at 126, 130. Got to 135, and fights were harder to win because he were fighting bigger guys. You know, so he had to work a lot harder to get these stoppages. And Teofimo Lopez, who's a big 135-pounder, that's who he lost to. And Lomachenko said this weekend, because he was at the fight with Josh Taylor, he said that he, you know, looking back at the fight now, when he watches it, he sees the fight as a draw. I mean, he's not going to admit to defeat. You know, I think Teofimo did enough to secure the fight, even though Lomachenko went and won like 4 or 5 rounds in a row in the second half. I can't remember exactly how I scored it, but Teofimo Lopez was very big at 135. You know, can easily fight at 140. You know, and he's very powerful. And I think the problem is Lomachenko waited too long for him to slow down. But he was also worried about the power. You know, there's so much risk in getting knocked out there. I don't think Lomachenko has fought someone that can box that well, but also brought so much power, and I think that's why the fight went the way that it went. I think a rematch, if that were to ever happen, I know a lot of people still want it, but it would be a very dangerous fight for Lomachenko, because Lomachenko would probably be more aggressive, but he'll probably leave himself open to get hit with a really clean, powerful shot, man. And I think T.O.'s only getting better, whereas Lomachenko is really not getting better at this point. He's still great. He's still one of the very best in the sport. But is he getting better? Is he improving? I don't see him at this age improving. All right. So listen, I think that's all I wanted to address today. JRS, I did speak on Taylor versus Crawford a little bit earlier. Didn't really, if they were to fight, I would pick Crawford. I like Taylor a lot. I like the fact that he can adjust to pretty much anybody. But when it comes to adjusting, I think Crawford is at the super elite of that. And I think he can do every single thing that Josh Taylor could do. But I think that he is better at it in every. Josh Taylor can switch it up, can adjust, can fight any way. But I think Crawford is just better at it. I think there's levels, and I think Taylor, as good as a fighter he is, and as he is a pound-for-pound fighter at this point, I thought he was pound-for-pound before that, before this fight. He is pound-for-pound, but I think Crawford is just is probably the most skillful fighter in the game. Just my opinion. All right. Crawford would beat him. All right. I don't know if he would stop him, but he would definitely beat him. And I think he beat him clearly. All right. Just my opinion. All right. That's going to be it for today, man. Thank you guys for checking in and tuning in. And I will be back tomorrow probably to give you guys a breakdown for this weekend fight, or to talk more boxing news. We'll see what comes up. But I wanted to close out the weekend fights with Taylor and Ramirez and talk about some of the other fights coming up this weekend. I will definitely be doing live commentary this weekend, so be on the lookout for that. And be on the lookout as well for the breakdowns for Oubaali and Donaire, and also Haney against Linares. All right, so I'll see you guys on the next one. Enjoy your day. Peace, and subscribe and smash that like button if you haven't already. Definitely smash the like button and subscribe to the channel and all that good stuff. All right. Peace.